In the previous video, we introduced the Lucena position, and we'd learned that it's not one position, but rather a structure. We observed that the pawn divided the board into a long side and a short side. Now, we observe that when entering a Lucena position, Black should attempt to position his rook on the long side and his king on the short side. The reason for this is simple. When the Black king is cut off, the only defensive possibility is side checks, and the further away the defending rook, the more successful the side checks will be. From this position, and with Black to move, Black begins side checks with rook a8. Black will continue these side checks, harassing the white king. We will look at this in detail in a moment. However, note that for side checks to work, the rook must have at least 3 files of distance from the pawn. This is only possible on the long side of the board. It is also clear that Black must have the move in order to begin the harassing checks. If White has the move, he simply begins to build the bridge. Let's see this in action and see that Black's rook on the flank does not help without having the move. Rook g2. King h7. The Black king is driven back. Rook g4. White lifts the rook and begins building the bridge. Now, side checks cannot work. Rook a8. And the white king simply moves king f7. And the pawn will promote. Note in this position, White is also threatening immediate checkmate. So going back, after White plays rook g4, Black's best move is rook d1, attempting to block in the white king and then giving harassing vertical checks. King f7, rook f1, king e6, rook e1, king f6, rook f1, king e5, rook e1, and now rook e4. The bridge is complete. The pawn will promote. Now from this position, let's give Black the move. Rook a8, king d7, White's only move. Rook a7, king d6, rook a6, king c7, rook a7, king d8. The white king must support his pawn, and there is no escape from Black's side checks. Without enough distance, side checks are not effective. If we put the Black king on the long side and the Black rook on the short side, and even giving Black the move, this is not sufficient for the draw. Rook h8, Black attempts side checks, but note that only 2 files separate the rook and pawn. King f7, rook h7, king f6, rook h6, king g7, and Black has no more checks to give. Rook e6, Black attempts to attack the pawn, but this will not work. King f7, rook e1, e8, and White promotes the pawn. Let's put the Black rook back on the long side and the Black king on the short side. Now, instead of having the rook on a1, let's move it to b1. In cases where the rook is poorly placed on the long side, as here on b1, and does not have 3 files of distance from the pawn, side checks will not work. This position is winning for White. However, the path to securing the full point must be studied. Rook b8. Rook d1 is Black's best try, but then White begins building the bridge with rook g2. King d7. Rook b7. Black continues with side checks. King d6. Rook b8. King C7, Rook A8. Black tries to get distance. And now the surprising Rook A2, the only move that wins for white. Black has a decision. If Rook E8, then King D7, King F7, Rook F2, white drives the king away to King G6 and wins. Or if black plays Rook takes A2, white promotes E8, gaining the queen, and enters into a winning queen versus rook endgame. We note that this is winning, but also that it may be difficult, and it is necessary to study the king and queen versus king and rook endgame. Now we return to the starting position. Black has the move, and the black rook is on the long side with 3 files of distance from the pawn. The black king is on the short side. But now we move the black king from G7 to G8. Does this matter? Yes, the poor placement of the black king allows the white king to escape the harassing side checks of the black rook. For example, Rook A8, King D7, Rook A7, King E6, Rook A6, King E5, Rook A5, King F6. This move would not be possible if the black king were on G7. Rook A6, King G5, Rook A5, King G6. White is threatening checkmate. If Rook A6, Rook F6, Rook A8, Rook D6, Rook E8, and Rook D8, and white wins easily. However, going back, if here, Rook A8, black is still not in time to win the pawn. Rook F6, Rook E8, Rook D6, and white wins easily. In this video, we have examined several Lucena positions. Positions where the defending rook has 3 files of separation from the pawn, positions where it does not, positions where the rook is on the long side, but poorly placed, and positions where the defending king itself is misplaced. And this shows something important. Understanding Lucena is more than knowing how to build the bridge. It requires attention to rook distance, king placement, and the geometry of the long side and the short side. Once you see these elements clearly, the position becomes much easier to judge. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration of Lucena, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.